G'day, just doing an overhaul on a TF62SN transmission, 6-speed. But what I'd like to show you is quite often people overlook these bushings, which are very critical in a rebuild. It helps keep everything central and operating as it should. Now, this bushing in here, if you have a look, that sits on this little shaft here on this drum, and we've got the Torrington bearing there. And if I put that in there and give that a bit of a wiggle, it looks like it's got a lot of slop in there. You see that? What you basically need to do is make a little dolly that's actually that exact same measurement, and I've got one here. One side will be the exact size of that little shaft, and you'll notice, it just goes straight in like that, and you can see there's a little bit of movement there. It's a bit hard to see, but I've got this other side which is 3/1000ths of an inch wider. If I try that, I can't get that in there. So what that actually tells me, that at that diameter bushing, that there is less than 3/1000ths of an inch play in that bushing, which is actually what you need, because to allow for heat stresses, things expanding and contracting with heat. So 3/1000 is alright. So that bush doesn't really need to be changed. If the wider part was loose in there, flopping around, then that would tell me that that bush needs to be replaced. And this one is okay. But I'll show you another one here. I've got the rear, they call it the rear planetary there. There's a sun gear there. And what I've got on that same tool that I've made, one is the same size as the shaft, which is on the opposite end here. There we go. Now if you were inspecting that, you'd think it's bloody worn. You can see there's a fair bit of movement there. But what you need to do is make a little testing dolly. This one here is the exact same size as the shaft on the drum. So if I push that into there's the same bush on either side of that sun gear. And you can see there's a bit of slop there. Now, it does look like there's a lot of wear. The other side here is 3/1000 wider, and if I push that in, you can see that's nice and snug. There's hardly any movement at all. So that tells me that that particular bushing, because it is a very similar size to there, it's just under an inch. I think it's 815 thou actually on the shaft, the actual shaft on the drum. But on the other side, we're on the gear side of it. If I go that one there, you can see how sloppy that is. If I spin it around 3/1000 more, that one's loose as well. So the bushing on this side's okay, and that one's not okay. Another thing what you've got to look for is you want to always, when you've got two bushes supporting a little shaft like that, you want to always try and have the bushes as far apart from each other as you can. What'll happen, it's sort of like having a vehicle with a wider wheelbase. It's more stable, and then it'll wear a lot slower. It won't allow that to wriggle around like that. So this bush on this side we'll be replacing, that one we won't be. And I've already put that drum together, replace the pistons in it. But I like to linish this as best as I can. And another point I'd like to make, you can see where those bushings sit, there are little lubricating holes there. So the one on this end, I'm going to actually try and put it in the minimum amount, and we can't really focus there, but you can see there's that little skid plate there, and that bush could just, it has to come up to that step. It can't be too far out, or that skid plate won't sit flush on there. But you can have that bushing coming right up to that skid plate, and there's probably, I don't know if you can see that, it's probably about 2 mil. I can drive that bush in 2 mil, not as deep, and that'll still clear that skid plate. The alignment of those lubrication holes there will be better. It won't be half over that hole, or a portion of that little port won't be sticking out, and it'll be completely covered over here. So it'll have a wider wheelbase, or a wider track there, so it's more stable. It won't wear out as quickly. One other thing I'd just like to show you, I've got a pair of verniers there, just to show you how much 3 thou is. Calibrated back to 0, and if I pull out one of my hairs, oh, got too many there, and I'll just measure one, and one of my hairs is about 2/1000ths of an inch, probably a little bit more, 2/1000ths of an inch thickness, so it's bugger all. So you can see, even though you could feel the movement in when there's 3 thou play in there, 3 thou is not much, and you need to have that to allow for the whole thing heating up and cooling, because the different metals heat and expand at different rates. So you've got alloy, you've got the bronze, you've got the cladding on the bushing, that's metal, a metal clad bushing. You've got bronze on the inside, so you can imagine all those metals, they have different properties that they run at, so you've got to allow some movement in there to allow for all that. Nice mirror finish. Got the new bush in. You can see I haven't driven it in as far. That's just barely clearing that skid plate. If I test it with our tester, you can see that one won't go in. That's the 3 thou oversize. And that one that's the same size as the shaft just snugly goes in. You got to keep in mind that that bush hasn't sort of settled as well, and they have a straight cut join on them, so sometimes when you're driving it in, it'll actually just sort of fold in like that where the join is. The way you can tell if it is touching is there'll be like a shinier part on there when you fit it on the shaft. So that's spinning quite nicely, and that's no movement at all. But it's got to be spinning freely like that. If there's any tension on it, then you might need to either scrape those shiny bits, or in some transmissions it's too tight and you need to actually get an adjustable reamer to just get the minimum off that bushing. But you got to keep in mind that these are very, very small measurements, we're talking thousandths of an inch. So don't overdo it. Anyway, I hope that information has helped. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave any comments in the section below. If you have any other suggestions, don't forget to put them in the comments section. It all helps everyone. Shared information, shared knowledge. I don't claim to know everything, but I like to share what I do know, and I like to learn too. Thank you for watching.